I am about to do some meal prep and I thought it was the perfect time to, oh God, no. Sorry, I just looked at my viewfinder and saw the open window behind me. Nope. If there's two things that I will never do, it is film in front of open hallways or doors or windows in the background, because God forbid one day I go back to edit a video and you can just see something standing in the, nah, not even gonna risk it. Not even gonna risk it. You are currently precariously balanced upon a box of toilet paper and a box of Milo snack breakfast bars. Like I said, I'm meal prepping at the moment because it is my one day off. We are 2 weeks into our bump in at Tina. Tomorrow we have another day in the theatre just getting everything ready, and then Tuesday we have cast on stage for tech. Videos for all of that will be coming. But I figured that right now is a really good opportunity for filming a little Q&A, because I've been keeping a whole bunch of the questions that I got from TikTok videos, YouTube comments, the Discord, my Instagram. I've just kept all of those in a little list for the next time I did a Q&A, and they're kind of banking up, and the next time I do a Q&A, I'd kind of like it to be Tina related. So now is the time. I'm literally waiting for water to boil so that I can cook some pasta and drinking, who's surprised, one of the Naked Life drinks. First question, are you going on to Wicked next? No, I'm not. I'm going on to Tina. Wicked starts this year in Sydney. I think it starts in August. I think it opens in August. It's funny because I feel like in other countries there are so many, like on the West End or in Broadway, there are so many shows that are going on and so many things that you can just like move on to that have been running for a really long time, whereas here you have such a small amount of shows that you can actually do. The industry is limited by the fact that shows come for a run, they go for a certain amount of time and then they close. So when your show is closing, whatever shows are coming up next are your next options. And I found out about Tina May last year because when we were doing the bump in for Mary Poppins, someone floated the idea to me of how would you feel about doing a musical about Tina Turner? And I was like, I would love that. I love her music. I did a kind of like a tribute biopic show of hers and a bunch of other artists with a company called Night Owl Shows, who are from the UK, when they came over for Adelaide Fringe, and Cleopatra Higgins was the woman singing the songs and, you know, telling the story of Tina, and she was amazing. Her story is, I'll get into more of that the more that we actually talk about Tina, but I was very excited to do Tina. I have never seen Wicked. Do not come for me, theatre fans. I just haven't seen it. I will see it because I have friends who are going onto the show. Watch me see it and be completely blown away and be like, wow, this was amazing and magical. So I will check in with you after I've had a chance to see it. But no, I'm not going on to Wicked. I'm going on to Tina. Dream show to work on now that you've done Phantom. I feel like I've stopped getting attached to the idea of a dream show because I did my 2 dream shows. I did Hamilton, I did Phantom, and I thought they were dream shows and they're a job. I hope that while I do Tina is my dream show. And I hope that whatever I do after that is my dream, whatever I do after that, because when you're actually in the experience of working on something, not that it ruins the magic, but you have to treat it like work. You have to treat it like a job. You have to treat it like something that you need to nail. Sometimes situations come up that you have to deal with and you can't be in the head frame of, but this is everything I've ever wanted, because sometimes everything you've ever wanted isn't what you expect it to be, and you need to make choices that are good for you. Even if this was your dream, maybe it might not be the thing you need to stay in. That's a long-winded way. That has nothing to do with Phantom. I loved Phantom. It was a great experience. It was a beautiful show. I loved my team. I was so obsessed with it. You've seen all the ranting. You know what I'm talking about. Phantom was my dream show when I was a kid. As I became an adult, Hamilton was my dream show. I did both of those. And then by the time I've been in a position to kind of like think of more dream shows, I'm in the industry and I don't think I do have any like dream shows. There are shows that I would love to do still, which I guess that is a dream show. Shows that I would love to do if I could would be, because I love the show itself, would be Beetlejuice, which I've never seen Beetlejuice, but just I love Tim Burton, everything. And the stuff that I have seen from Beetlejuice is super fun and the technical elements of it look incredible. So I would love to do Beetlejuice. I would love to do Sweeney Todd or Into the Woods at a professional level, not in community theatre, at a professional level. Want that sweet, sweet budget. What happens to mics after a long run/tour closes? Do they get returned to the manufacturer or do they just get trashed? I think the answer for this is different to every show. In Australia, at least, from what I know, which I could be wrong, when a show happens and the sound company is employed by the show buy all the mics. They buy all the mics that get used. So they technically belong to the show. So at the end of the run, the show can do what they want with them, whether that means that they put them into storage, send them into another production, or any of those kind of things. Yeah, so when they do the show, they are bought by the show, they belong to the show, which kind of means that they belong to the production company doing the show. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the time they don't get used again. In some companies, though, I know do reuse their mics. I know that on Hosh we had mics that were, some were brand new and others were ones they had from past Opera Australia shows that were still in great condition. In my mind, what would be a smart idea is to send those mics to, or sell them to community theatre productions, because they're still incredibly good microphones. Most of them are in perfect condition. They're just like secondhand, but they would still work. Most difficult costume you've had to work with. From amateur theatre days, there was a time when I did a production of Phantom at an amateur level. It was actually at high school. The Madame Giry costume for that was so tight that it was crushing her transmitter, and they didn't have anywhere else for us to put it. Also because this was a child, so we're not like going into their pants and their underwear and whatever. That sucked. Her transmitter ended up like clipping onto the inside of her corset, so you could see the top of it at the top, but that is the only way that it wouldn't get crushed. Other difficult costumes. I'm sure friends in wardrobe would have so many rants about this. Oh, actually, another amateur theatre one was when I did Tarzan Jr. Tarzan, if you're familiar with the idea of Tarzan as a story, doesn't wear a lot. Again, I think this was a problem purely because it was an amateur, like youth production, because our adult Tarzan was, I think he was like 19 at the time. He was like barely an adult, and our young Tarzan was definitely 100% a child, but was still only wearing the little like loincloth situation. And we would have to tuck their mic belts, or they would tuck their mic belts, we didn't do it, into that. So we put their mic on and they would push it down into their underwear basically. And that was a bit weird, purely because I'd then have to tape up a child, like up his entire back after he'd shoved. You know what's weird? The fact that I do a working with children's check to work in this industry. If you don't know, a working with children's check is where you go to the police and you get a certificate saying that you are allowed to work with children because you have no past crimes with children. And when you do that, they go through a bunch of things that are saying like, you know, even if you're working with children, you have no reason to ever be in their change rooms, their dressing rooms, touching them physically. There are very strict rules around how much you can touch children when you work with them. Like we are discouraged from even hugging the kids. Like if they try and initiate it with us, we have to kind of shut it down, even though we are very huggy with each other. And like my friends' kids and my nephews and nieces, I would hug them and that's perfectly fine. But in the workplace, not allowed. Big no-no. And I can totally understand why that is the case. But it's weird then to be a mic tech who has to touch them. Very bizarre. Favorite backstage rituals you've had with other cast and crew? I'm going to assume that your definition of ritual was like something that we just did every show. My favorite one of those was when I was on Hamilton. I was monitoring, which is what I did most of the time. I can't remember how it came up, but I think I was explaining to Ty how microphone monitoring worked, or like how we know when there's an issue. If you see a spike, it could be a break, it could be a smack, it could be like a sweat out clunkiness. It's just, that is a point where you would go, okay, I need to look at that. He figured that out and would tap his mic to get my attention. At the top of Helpless, when Man 5 becomes the father Skylar, waiting to go on stage and walk around the top of the balcony thing, he would get my attention at that point sometimes, and he would talk to me as he walked across the top. Like on stage, he's just like walking across the top being like, hey Monique, how are you? I hope you're having a good show. I'm really hungry. I can't wait for lunch. Or he would sing me stupid songs. That became like a ritual for us, which in hindsight is really lame and romantic. Other ones, at the end of Phantom during the final layer, another cast member who was not on stage at that time would give another performance and we would all go and watch and applaud, and it was amazing. We started waving to Amy during Past the Point of No Return, which she posted a video of. You can see it on her TikTok and on her Instagram. I think I reshared it on my Instagram too. It's amazing. It's just, she turns around on the table doing like a very serious point in the show and we're like, oh my God, one of my favorite ones is during the mirror scene in Phantom, where the mirror is there and Christine and the Phantom interact before they go on the journey. There is a collection of crew behind the mirror. There are lighting and mechs inside the mirror to operate the opening and closing and all that kind of stuff. There are stage management behind there ready to escort the Phantom and Christine up the wall into the journey. There's a dresser, they're ready to dress the Phantom. There is a wiggy there to do with the wigs and the makeup and check him. And there's me, who has to check the Phantom's hat mic is all good and just check the Phantom's mic in general. So there's a whole lot of us behind there just hanging out. And Hugh, the incredible head of Wham on Phantom, who is now also the head of Wham on Tina. So we get to spend the next little while together as well, which I'm very excited about. The point where everything would start to move in this version of the production.
So they do the I am your angel music, blah, 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 part, and Christine walks to the mirror. And then Ralph comes out and is all like, who is that? And then that bit. And then he's like, Christine! And then the overture like the starts. Hugh and I would try and time this, everything would start to move and we could get out from behind the stage. And at that point, Hugh and I would wait to like, it was really cute.
Glad I got that on camera. Most enjoyable commute to the theatre you've had, and which had the best sound office? Most enjoyable commute to the theatre would probably have been, so far for me, the Art Centre. Art Centre's here. There's like the walk along the Yarra, I think, and then there's the Crown Casino, these two locations. And I lived like a block away from the Crown. So I would just get on a little scooter and I would ride along the walk bike situation way up to the Art Centre, which took like 10 minutes max. So it was a super short commute. It was so beautiful because you were going along the water. It was really sunny and there was all these people around walking and riding their bikes, and there was markets out the front of the theatre on a Sunday, and like it was just really nice, and it didn't take a long time, which was so good. Which had the best sound office? Loved our sound office at the Opera House because we had a lounge and a fridge and a sink and like just all of these things, but it was very far away from stage. I love the sound office at the Lyric because it is super close to stage. Our office here at the Royal is also very close to stage, but it is more like a storage cupboard made into an office than it is like it's very different to the Lyric. Our one at the Art Centre was also kind of cool because it was a dressing room, so it had the lights and stuff in there, which was awesome. But I think the Opera House, the Joan Sutherland Theatre, was my favourite sound office we had. Is the backstage work for sound simply just checking mics are in the right position after a big quick change? What else does it involve? I love this question. I know that in my Night at the Theatre videos, I'm often limited as to what I can actually show you of my cues because it often will reveal things about the show or show you. There are rules about what we can and can't show you backstage, which are put in place to protect the privacy of people backstage, like people doing quick changes and people who are undressed back there, but also to protect the show and what's happening. Like if you could see a set piece that showed like a reveal of how a thing works, it would ruin the show for people. So there's a reason why I can't show you everything. I'm going to try and find a way during the Tina Night at the Theatre to give a better description of the kind of cues that I'm doing so that I can give you an idea. But I'll give you some examples of stuff that I've done backstage during a plot. A lot of it is checking mic positions. For example, during Hamilton, a whole lot of the cues that the A plot has in Act 1 are to do with Hercules Mulligan taking headbands and hats on and off and you adjusting his mic position for that. You place the crown on the king's head and you take it off him when he comes on and off stage because there's a mic in that. You collect the handhelds from the cabinet meetings, which is a good time. In Phantom, on Hosh, I had a lot of very bizarre cues. I had to plug in speakers on a truck that moved up and down stage and that was flown in on a crane from an off-site barge. I had to strike mics off of set pieces on top of the stage. And by strike mic, I mean like it was used for a section and when it was done, I had to take the microphone away and turn it off. Mary Poppins, there was a lot of position checking. There was also changing grills for people, like the grill on the microphone, because depending on what character they were playing, their microphone would either be on their head or in their hat. And if it was in their hat, they put a black grill on it. If it was on the head, they used a beige grill. The A plot on Mary Poppins also is responsible for getting the flour out of the kids' mics if that happens while they're in the kitchen scene. You are also there in case there is a break. So if there's an issue or a mic breakage, you are required to fix it before they get back on stage, which sometimes means you have a lot of time and other times means you have absolutely no time at all. So you are either doing cues, checking mics that are about to go on, or fixing problems that have come up. There are some quick changes that you are required to be there for, just in case anything goes wrong or because they're changing wigs or that kind of thing. Offstage singing as well, a lot of the time we're required to be there for offstage singing just so we can monitor where people are in relation to where they're meant to be, that there is no one, like no other crew around them, like talking loudly or anything like that because they are doing offstage singing. In general, we just keep an eye on everyone's mics. We walk around and have a look at their positioning. We de-sweat people if they need it. In Tina, there are quite a lot of handheld microphones used and mics that are wireless, but they look wired and they change a lot during the show. I'll talk more about that in my Night at the Theatre, but a lot of my job on Tina is going to be microphone management, not even of the ones that are actually on people's faces. So that is going to be fun. Also, if something goes wrong with the band or the orchestra, that is something that we will help deal with. If fallbacks go down, we will help fix it. If the cameras for the MD screens around stage that show the cast, the MD, so that they know when to come in and things like that, if those go down, that's our responsibility. If anyone has an issue with their comms, or the backstage crew wear what is essentially like a glorified radio, it's like a headset with a pack, and the pack has different channels on it that relate to the show. That is how the stage manager will call cues to everyone, and also that they can talk to each other on loops. If there's any sound equipment that has to go on and off stage, we will help deal with that as well. If something has a mic in it or a speaker in it that comes on and off, that is our responsibility too. What was your on-stage cue for Hush? Good question. So I had two. My first one was at the top of the show. I would be standing at the back of the stage in complete view of the audience, like a lot of us were, waiting to take the microphone off of the auction truck that was used to pick up the gavel. I would walk up onto it, grab it and walk off. And there was also another on-stage cue where after the sits probe that they do before they go into wishing, when Christine goes into the graveyard, the angel truck with like the mausoleum thing on top of it, it had speakers on it that needed to be plugged in, and then the cable had to be fed downstage and then coiled up as it came back up. Historically in Phantom, there has been an onstage cue of being behind, I guess there was a set piece that used to be like a giant bed in Prima Donna or something like that, and you would have to be behind there to help with the wig quick change. But now in the productions that I've done, they've done that on stage. So I haven't been there for that. I've been in the wings panicking. If you can't remove the mic capsule, how do you go about cleaning the mics? We clean the cabling, which is the bit that gets the dirtiest, to be honest. And then on most mics that we use, you can remove the grill, and that is what you will start to clean. The capsule itself is the mechanics inside the microphone that make it work, and the grill is what goes on top. It's kind of rare that the capsule itself will get gross and dirty because the grill protects it. The grills we will drop into like little jewelry cleaners that vibrate and remove dirt and grit. We'll use alcohol wipes, we'll use eucalyptus, we'll use cotton buds to get all up in the grill. And we can also use pressurized air in a can, which is good for around like under the grill as well, because you can just out any dirt or gunk or whatever. Or if the thing that is making it dirty is hair, if a hair has gotten caught in the mic, you can use tape and just boopity boop the grill and it will like pull the hair out. It'll catch the hair and be like, what do you do to prep the skin for tape? So we have these little wipes called, I think they're literally called skin prep. It is just a wipe that you put on your skin. I don't actually know what's in it exactly. I will find out and let you know. That makes the skin kind of tacky, and then you can stick a little bit easier to the tape. But most of the time we don't really do anything to prep for the skin specifically. We more so just use a tape that is appropriate for someone's skin. So some people have really sensitive skin and they need to use a sensitive tape. Some people are super sweaty, so they need to use a stronger tape, and we just figure out whatever works best. And some people's skin types and textures don't actually take certain tape, and some of them favor the other. So it's just about finding out what works for someone. What cleaning products do you use? I'm assuming that you mean on the microphones. 99% alcohol and eucalyptus oil are my biggest use. I use 99% alcohol on the grills and on like the actual microphone area, and on the cable I will usually use eucalyptus oil and then alcohol wipes to clean off the eucalyptus oil. But eucalyptus oil gets through everything. Eucalyptus oil is amazing. If the transmitters ever get dirty, I usually just wipe them down with like a baby wipe or an antibacterial wipe, and the mic belts get washed by wardrobe however often is required for the show. What are crew doing before a show when cast are rehearsing? What a perfectly timed question. There will be videos coming soon about the entire MoniqueTech preview production of Tina before we get into the actual show run and after opening. I've got other videos as well about the bump in and the transfer for Phantom. Essentially what we're doing is putting the show into the theatre. Theatres are truly just a stage space, maybe some bars above it that things can be hung on, and seating. We put in everything else. Some theatres will have their own speakers in some places, and we can either choose to use those or put up our own depending on the sound design. Everything else goes in. The mechanics that go under the floor, especially if a show has a revolve on the stage itself, the stage deck is built on top of the normal stage. Backgrounds, the scene stuff, the set stuff, the lighting, the sound equipment, everything else goes in. We put all of that in. When we walk in, it is just a blank stage, and when we leave, it is just a blank stage. But in between then is when we put all of our shit in there, all of our gear. We run probably thousands of cables through the theatre. more equipment than I can even begin to truly fathom for every single department. And that is what we're doing while the cast is rehearsing. Every individual department will do their own preparations, whatever that means for them. For sound, that usually means a couple or more weeks in a warehouse where we build the system together to make sure it all works and that we have all the elements. We do all the prep that we need to do for certain parts of the elements. Like I did some work on microphones, Anthony did some work with the console and with the programming of the show. Then we break it all down, pack it all into trucks and move it into the theatre. But there's usually, at least I know for sound, a couple of weeks, if not more, of prep in the warehouse, and then we move it into the theatre. And I know every other department does a similar thing. And those hours are long, because the longer that a show is in a theatre and not doing shows, they're losing money. They're not making any money while they're in there doing that. So the bump in needs to happen as quickly as possible. We've been in there 2 weeks and we are almost ready to go. With cast on stage, we've been dry teching the last couple of days last week, but we have been there for 14 hours every single day. Some people are not getting days off. For example, today they did a sound tune, which meant that our associate sound designer, the sound designer, and our PSE were in the theatre still tuning, doing the tune for the venue, even though there was nobody else there because it was everyone else's day off. But that is what the crew are doing. Other departments are doing different things. I know that wigs and hair and makeup have been doing prep for a very long time. I think Hugh started the prep like straight after Phantom ended, if not while he was still there. I know that company management, our company manager Jane from Phantom is now the company manager for Tina. And I know that she was already doing work for Tina while we were still at Phantom, which was 3 months ago. Stage management are part of the rehearsal process at the rehearsal studio with the cast. So they're involved in that. And there's a whole lot of other people in the production that have been working on it for years before it actually comes to stage and comes to be a show run. Those are all the questions that I have for this time. Thank you if you're someone who submitted one of those questions in any of the forms that they got submitted. Thank you for watching as well. Tina videos will be coming soon. I wanted to get through this production period without having to worry about smashing out a video for the production period, because I want to make sure that they are informative and show you a lot of things that are really cool, and also because the company requested that we don't put out any content of the show until after opening. So after opening is when all of these things will be coming, and I hope that it inspires you to come and see the show. I'm already so emotionally attached to this show. I was lucky enough to get to watch a rehearsal run 3 times in the last week. I have seen 3 of our Tinas and I have cried every single show. I will get more into my feelings about the show and the content of it in later videos that are show specific, but please, please, please go and grab tickets to Tina while it is in Sydney. Go and subscribe to the channel and go and follow me on Instagram so you can see everything video and Tina related while you are there. Thank you so much for watching. I need to meal prep the other part, which is loud.